Attention on deck. First time I heard those words shouted in my ears, I was instantly paralyzed from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. As those words reverberated between my ears, they completed a synapse in my brain that had never been there before, and two very startling things became welded into my brain. Stop immediately and focus directly on the source of the command. And there's no such thing as a floor in the Navy. They don't exist, nor do doors, walls, hallways, or staircases. Only decks, hatches, bulkheads, passageways, and ladders comprise the world of the U.S. Navy. But let's take a look at this phrase from a different perspective. Hi, I'm Pastor Tom. Attention on deck. Those words seem to have a way of cutting through all the confusion and noise. And yet there are other words that call to action that are never audibly heard. Words and actions so powerful that they often go completely unnoticed. Have you ever felt like you were shouting those words and no one was paying any attention? Hello, God, where are you? Do you know I'm here? Attention on deck. Well, we've all read the story of the woman with the issue of blood. It's well recorded in the Gospels. But in reading it the other morning, I was struck by a couple of things I hadn't thought of before. See if they ring true for you. Now first, let's put the incident in perspective. Jesus came face to face with the ruler of the synagogue, named Jairus, who pleaded with him to heal his 12-year-old daughter. So Jesus set out with him, followed by a huge crowd. But suddenly he stopped. Someone or something got his full attention. Here was a woman, according to Levitical law, had been ceremoniously outcast for 12 years because of a continual issue of blood. And standing with Jesus was Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, that she was not allowed to enter. He was famous, and she was anonymous. He was rich, and she was poor. He had a daughter who had only lived 12 years, and here was a woman who had been socially dead for 12 years. What a contrast. There's so much to glean from this encounter, but I want to focus on one question. Why did Jesus respond? Well, while the answer is obviously in response to her faith, there's a much deeper lesson for us. With all the people pressing in around him, Jesus instantly knew when she reached out in faith. And that's true today. While multitudes throng to Jesus, very few reach out and touch him. Many had dismissed her, but Jesus didn't. Her faith drew virtue, his power, from him. But it wasn't because of touching his robe, as was the common thought of the day. Touch the hem of the garment of a rabbi, and you would be healed. No, it was her faith that silently shouted out, attention on deck. Her faith opened the door for a personal relationship with Jesus. Now, Jesus wanted all there to know that she was now no longer ceremonial unclean. She was, as the word in the Greek is, sozo. She was saved, delivered, protected, preserved. She was whole. It might have taken her a very long time to prove that she was clean, but Jesus had other plans. He wanted her to know it and everybody else to know it now. Now, secondly, he wanted her to know that it wasn't some superstition or magical garment that healed her. It was her faith. He was making a statement to the crowd that in the midst of people without faith reaching out to him, a person of faith touches him differently. Here was a woman, separated from her home, isolated from her family and her synagogue. Every human avenue had been exhausted, and yet the old adage was true. Man's futility is God's opportunity. She fell at Jesus' feet, trembling in anticipation of the condemnation she felt was coming because of her presumption. For her to touch anyone was to make them also ceremonial unclean. But Jesus had no such thought. He wanted her to express the faith that caused her to touch him, to make it public. Touching his robe resulted in the physical healing, but he wanted her to understand that wholeness can only come through a face-to-face confrontation with him. He wanted to publicly restore her self-respect and remove her outcast, unclean status with but a word. Luke 8:48. And he said to her, Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. What a picture of true salvation. And it's interesting that this is the only instance in Scripture where Jesus used the word thugata, a daughter, a descendant. She had a new relationship with him. She was family. I'm reminded of evangelist Smith Wigglesworth. He always maintained that Jesus would overlook 1,000,000 people to touch the one reaching out to him in faith. Think about that. We reach out in faith, and to Jesus it's a resounding attention on deck. He knows the cry of those in faith and those that are not. Her faith was exercised by reaching out to touch his robe, her point of contact. What's yours? What makes one touch different from another? Is it exhaustion or desperation? Is it the fact that we've blown it so bad we don't have anywhere else to turn? I think that, like Jairus, we can take a lesson from the encouragement of her story. We mustn't forget that Jesus was on his way to his home when this incident took place. But upon returning to their journey, Jesus turned to Jairus in the face of a bad report, and he simply said 4 simple words. Luke 8:49 and 50. While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." But Jesus, hearing this, answered, "Do not fear, only believe. She will be well." We need to hang on to those words. Fear not, only believe. In our exhaustion and desperation, when we reach out in faith, we have his full attention. He's focused on us in the midst of our circumstances, even though through those circumstances are like the crowd around the woman in the story that made her feel insignificant. Jesus' goodness is ready to turn our problems into opportunities for hope. His greatness makes our needs seem small and insignificant, while at the same time his grace makes our healing, our salvation secure. Now we can be assured that exercising the small amount of faith will cry out, "Attention on deck," and we will get his full attention. Now remember Pastor John Corson saying that if you don't feel Jesus touching your life at the moment, reach out and press through the crowd of unbelief around you and touch him. Jesus didn't admonish the woman because she didn't follow the proper protocol. He heeded her cry of faith in the midst of her desperation. He reached out with his power. Now everything in your life may be going smoothly, or you may be in desperate straits like the woman with the issue of blood. We don't know what the next moment will bring, but we do know that the answer to our situation is in his hands. Like the old hymn, it is no secret what God can do. What he's done for others, he'll do for you. Don't ask how, don't ask why. Just fear not, only believe. So our challenge is to turn to Jesus first in our time of need, rather than waiting until we've exhausted all of our natural resources and are desperate. We need to remember that when we reach out in faith, he hears our call. Attention on deck. So thanks for joining us once again and being here on this spiritual journey through life. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and join me here every Wednesday as we challenge one another to grow in our relationship with Jesus. Now you can help us by hitting the like button and sharing and contributing to get the message out to the bride. All we have to do is look at the world around us and realize the stage is set. There's tremendous chaos, and he is the ruler over chaos. Now, if you're not a believer in Jesus and don't know who the bride of Christ is, I invite you to click the link to Come and Believe and learn how the Chinese foretold the coming of Jesus thousands of years before his birth and death. It will lead you to the next step. So until next Wednesday, remember I'm here every week as we journey from the cross to spiritual maturity. Have a great week in Jesus, and God bless.